Alright guys, so the last part of the map event finally out now, and basically what we meant to get at the end is a formidable boss battle, which is actually now a score challenge. And the idea here is that you want to do as much damage as you possibly can, and as a result then get rewarded based on how much damage you have done. Now I currently is only at 8 million. I know a lot of people can probably hit a lot higher because I don't have Nobara or Megumi, who would actually be really strong in this mode because the enemy is weak against yellow. I don't have any of that, so I was just using Gojo as my only DPS, and it was still sufficient for me to get 8 million, and which is more than enough to clean up all of the rewards. So I'm gonna show you in this video today on how to actually collect all of the rewards for this game mode. Now you will see my Gojo is actually quite highly leveled up, but once again I got all the way up to 8 million. You don't actually need to hit that high, you only need 5 million to get all of the rewards. And to be honest, if you don't really care about this bragging right, you only want the resources, 4 million is actually going to be all you need in order to collect all of the actual tangible rewards. So it should be still pretty straightforward for you guys. Now, I also kind of want to do this gacha on the video today because we just happened, I'm not sure what this actually came from. I think it's one of the login event. It's on the last day and managed to get another SSR guarantee gacha. So let's do this together and see whether we can actually get Nobara from it. Although this one's with recollection as well, right? Okay, so we may not be as lucky, but you know what? Let's use it and see what we get. Hopefully I prefer character, but nope, we got recollection, and this is not a very good one, if I remember correctly. This is one which physical technique. I mean, I don't have many physical technique recollection, but this is definitely one of the ones which I did not really want to get. But that's okay. Let's go back to the actual main topic, which is gonna be this map event. Okay, so how does this score challenge actually work? So you can take a look at the idea here, but basically there are 3 phases as what this description is saying. Phase 1 and phase 2 really doesn't matter. It's just the boss as normal. No matter how much damage you do, it's going to be capped to the same amount of score. Now, what you really want to do is really hit in kind of this middle phase. They are going to say phase 1 and phase 2. I'm actually going to call 1, 2, 3 just for simplicity because that's the way it's numbered. So in this middle phase here, basically what you actually want to do is you want to build up of your buff towards the end of phase 1 so that you can do most amount of damage here in this middle phase, because this middle phase is actually the one where the score is not going to be capped. So unlike phase 1 and the last phase, no matter how much damage you're going to deal, you're always going to cap to the same score for everyone. This middle phase is really where it's going to shine and actually make a difference, and that's basically the one you want to do the most amount of damage on. Now obviously, as I mentioned, because I do not have Nobara or Megumi or any of those characters, what I ended up with is having to use Gojo. Now if you think about Gojo can only last on the field for 7 turns, and in the middle phase where you can actually do the most amount of damage, there are only 3 turns available for you to allow damage. So if you actually work backwards, basically what you want to do is that you want to do the most amount of nuking on turn 7, 6, and 5. And that basically means I need to break the boss and kill off all of the HP on his phase 1 by the end of turn 4. So already you can already kind of tell what's the strategy going to be when you are using someone like Gojo, who is actually limited to how many turns he can be on the field. I need to break the enemy by the end of turn 4. Now depending on how strong your Gojo is built up, what I find easiest is actually just to use your ultimate attack by turn 4. And therefore now my strategy is actually just going to be, you need a formation which is allowing you to break the enemy with your ultimate attack on turn 4, and then you'll be buffing up yourself again for turn 5 and turn 6, and then using another ult on turn 7. And as a result, you need to quickly charge up your ult, and that's kind of why you see in my team that I have Toge as well. Now obviously I also have 2 other buffer because that's for stacking up the amount of damage that my Gojo is able to do. And also once Gojo actually leave at the end of turn 7, the very last phase, the enemy still have a HP bar, so you still need to kill off the enemy somehow, and that's kind of the reason why I have a second DPS as my backup, because he will just be used in the very last phase in order to actually finish off the battle. So that's basically the strategy it's gonna be. Now in terms of recollection, you definitely want pride on your Gojo, because basically the effect on pride can be stacked up twice. It's not saying that it will be used for 2 turns where the buff is valid for 2 turns, it's actually for 2 times. So what that basically means is you can actually stack it up, and because this only have a cooldown of 5 turns, you can actually stack this up twice, so that when you're actually nuking the enemy with your second ult, this is going to be benefiting from both stacks of the buff from this recollection, and that's kind of what makes this really strong. In terms of the recollection on other characters, you basically want to have as many recollection which is able to buff up your damage output. So for example, I have those first 2 recollection, which is able to increase the amount of damage my Gojo or my whole team is able to do. Now, the other thing you also want to do is you want to make sure your Yaga and also Nanami have quite high curse energy, so that they can actually stack up buffs every single turn, especially because this boss actually also have an attack which can drain away your curse energy. So as a result, you really want to make sure they have as much curse energy as possible, and that's kind of why I recommend you to have kind of at least dupe 2 on both of them. Now, if you don't have any of those characters on dupe 2, then what you can do instead is you can use this recollection, which also give a plus 10 curse energy, and that's basically just to ensure that both of them will be starting off with the maximum amount of curse energy as possible. Now, in terms of your DPS, your second DPS, just pull whatever damage buffing recollection you have available on him. Okay, now let's go into the actual battle itself, and let me show you exactly what we want to do every single turn. So, like I said, because let me turn off auto battle. So, because you actually want to ult on turn 4, and you want to increase the maximum amount of damage you have on your character on turn 4, what you want to do is you want Gojo to buff himself on turn 2 and turn 3 with his own buff. Now, because his buff only lasts for 3 turns, that basically means whatever you buff on use on turn 1 would have expired by turn 4 anyway. So that's kind of why on Gojo for the very first turn, you can just do whatever attack you want, which is the physical attack. And I'll talk about why physical attack later on. Now for Yaga and Nanami, what you want to do is because you want to preserve their curse energy as much as possible so that they can stack back to back from turn 4 onwards. And the reason why you want to stack on turn 4 onwards is because basically what happens is that their buff can be stacked for 4 turns. So because you're going for the second nuke on Gojo on turn 7, if you walk back for 4 turns, then basically that basically means you have to start stacking buff from your turn 4 as well, so that you actually have a buff on turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, and turn 7. So that's 4 buffs in total. Now that's kind of why what I recommend for your Yaga and Nanami is going to just be using normal attacks on turn 1. Now for your Toge, what you want to do is actually increase your whole team's ultimate energy, and that's basically what allows your Gojo in order to reach his ultimate by turn 4 for the first time. So that's basically why if I'm actually going to do this, I'll be Yaga doing skill 1, Toge doing skill 2, Nanami doing skill 1. Gojo will be using his recollection because remember this can be stacked up, and also because this is only going to be used when you actually use a curse technique, and that's kind of why I'm choosing to use skill 2 here, which is actually a melee attack, and therefore wouldn't actually use up the buff on my recollection. So I'll be going for a skill 2 here. This is just going to be chip damage. I don't really care how much I do because what's going to actually kill off this boss is going to be the ult on turn 4 anyway. Okay, so Yaga, I'm still going to do turn 1 a normal attack. Now my on my Toge, what I'm actually going to do is rather than using my skill 2 to increase ultimate energy now, I'm actually going to go back to normal attack. And the reason why I'm doing this is that once again, if you think about the turn allocation you have, Gojo need to be able to use his ult on turn 4 and also on turn 7. That basically means you need to have your ultimate charge up by the end of turn 3 and also at the end of turn 6. So rather than wasting or using up your skill 2 now, when you have 4 turns to charge up or 3 turns to charge up, it's actually slightly better for you to preserve your curse energy for your turn 5 and turn 6, because at that point you only have 3 turns or 2 turns to charge up your curse energy for the second nuke. Basically it's just a shorter time window between turn 4 and turn 7 rather than turn 1 and turn 4, and that's kind of why I'm doing a normal attack now so that I can preserve my curse energy for later on. Nanami will be using skill 1 again, once again preserving my curse energy so I can stack up buff from turn 4 onwards. And now Gojo will be going into buff twice consecutively so that he can then use those buff when he nuke on turn 4. Now, obviously, the enemy will be doing some attack, and some of them drains curse energy. For example, this one just drained 30 curse energy on my Yaga. That's kind of what you want to start off the battle with as much curse energy as possible. Now, here's something that you may actually want to try, depending on how much damage your Gojo have or able to do. It's basically if you're not able to actually wipe out the enemy HP, then you may actually have to start stacking up your buff now rather than next turn, just so that for your very first ultimate attack, you already have some of Yaga and enemy's buff there to help you out. I know my damage output is high now, so that's kind of what I'm okay to just still use my normal attack this time. However, if you are having trouble killing off the boss first phase with your first ultimate attack, then I will actually suggest changing to a buff from this turn onwards. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to actually just use skill 1. Likewise, Toge, I'm going to use skill 1 as well because I want to preserve my curse energy for later on, and likewise for Nanami as well. And my Gojo is still going to be buffing, and basically now my Gojo will be reaching the end of his ultimate charge attack. Okay, so he will be charged up now. Now this is the time, turn 4 is when you want to start stacking on your buffers and also nuking on your Gojo. Toge will still be doing a normal attack because once again I want to preserve my curse energy for the next 2 turns when I use skill 2 back to back. Nanami will be start buffing now as well, and my Gojo will be going for nuke, and this should be able to kill off the boss first wave. Okay, this wiped out boss, and you can see the score is now set to the maximum, which is 1.5 minutes. So no matter how much damage you do in the first phase, it's always going to be capped to 1.5 minutes. Okay, now my buffer will be continue doing their buff. My Toge will now also buffing up his ultimate energy because I need to charge up my Gojo's ultimate for the second time around in just 2 turns. So that's kind of why I was saving up curse energy, so I can use this back to back now. Nanami will be buffing again, and my Gojo will be going back to buffing just for that final nuke. The reason why I don't want to do any attack now is because if I am to attack, remember my recollection only gave me 2 buff on my curse energy attacks for a curse technique attack, and I already used up one of them for my first buff. So if I am to use a curse technique attack now, then that would be using up my last remaining buff from the first time I activated my recollection. And if I decide to use a physical attack, that's just not going to do much because with this recollection, the raw stats it give is mainly for curse technique. So that's kind of why rather than trying to do a bit of chip damage here, you would normally be better off just buffing on yourself and also obviously activating your recollection for the second time round. Now, as for other characters, obviously I'll be buffing on everyone so that I can get the most amount of buff and also hopefully fill up my Gojo's ultimate energy for this round. Okay, so Toge basically used his skill 2 back to back twice, and now I have also charged up the ultimate energy on my Gojo. And now it's basically where you're going then for the nuke. What I'm going to do is I'll be using everyone's ultimate attack now because this is where I want to dish out as much damage as possible. So that's kind of why I'm doing everyone using the ultimate attack and also any buff from recollection, etc. So you can see here I was at 1.5 million because that's the maximum you can get from phase 1. And let's see how much all of my attack will be able to do in one go. Okay, so the first 2 attack only done like 0.5 million, which is not much. But the main one we are all waiting for is obviously Gojo's nuke. So this is at 2.3 million right now. And it's not even crit, and I just done like 3.2 million by itself. As you can see, this already helped me to reach my 5 million mark to collect all of the rewards. You can just see in total I done almost 5.9 million. Okay, now Gojo is retreated from the battle, so I now need to finish off the last phase of this boss with my second DPS. So I'm not going to talk much here, I'm just going to quickly do this, and then we'll take a look at my final score, okay? And the way you finish off the battle is obviously the standard usual stacking buff on your Nanami and Yaga, etc. And you can use to charge up your ultimate energy as you want so that you can once again use everyone's ultimate attack. Oh, and also I think I just forgot to show my skill level as well. I will do that at the end of the battle, just so you guys know for reference what were my skill levels in order to actually achieve this high score. But like I said, if you're just aiming for the 5 million mark for to collect all of the rewards possible, then you don't actually need to be as high level as what I have. I think there's a good chance I might even be my previous high score actually. And I still yet to crit on my Gojo's ult out of all the times I have been trying. So if I really want to, I mean, there's no incentive for me to do so because it's not like we actually get any reward for higher scores other than like bragging rights. So I may not bother. But if I really want to, I can keep on repeating this just to go for a lucky attack with a crit on my Gojo's ult for even like new, even higher score, etc. But yeah, there's probably no point when there's only so little milestone or rewards that you're able to reach right now. On the JP version, I think you can basically collect rewards up to the first 20 million, but obviously their characters are a lot stronger, so that's kind of why they set the threshold for the maximum reward a lot higher. If people set it for 20 million now, probably there's only a few selected players are able to do it. And I'm pretty sure if that's going to be the case, you definitely need like a Nobara or Megumi on your team to do that. And obviously this time round, I was charging up ult on my Togo throughout. Togo is skill 2 throughout. I have my ult ready again, and then I'm now linking up everyone's ult. Once again, because this last phase, it doesn't matter how much damage you do. The cap is going to be the same no matter what. It doesn't really matter like whether you are timing it correctly in terms of the attacks. As long as you finish the battle, you'll be fine. Okay, so my final score is just under 8 point. Actually, no, it'll be over 8.4 million now. Yeah, I think that was higher than what I had. Oh, just under 8.4 million. Yeah, higher score, slightly higher score than last time. But like I said, this is no. I'm sure people are able to get it higher, especially if you actually use the new Megumi and also Nobara in your team. You can definitely hit a lot higher than whatever I'm able to do. And lastly, as I promised, let me show you the skill level on all of my characters, which is it. So basically, I have all of my buffing skills at level 8, and also my Gojo's ultimate, because that's what's gonna do most of the time, it's also at level 8. Now, the other thing I think you may have to make sure is Toge's skill 2. Basically, that's the one you need in order to make sure you're able to ult twice to have enough to have enough ult energy charge up to be able to charge up your ult twice. I'm not sure exactly what I need. I think you need minimum level 5. But I had level 6 this time around, and I don't know what that made the difference either. So I would recommend at least have it at level 5 and just see whether that works. If not, then level up to level 6, and then you have the exact same effect as me.